Welcome to Golden Chat, where we provide straight talk. Each week, we deliver great insights about assisted living facilities or senior living, anything that can help you have a better life as a senior. And if you are the family as well, we want to help you help your senior. So I'm your host, Stella, with your co host, Lana and Pedro.
Good
Good
afternoon.
afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. Today we have a question from Mary. Mary has a concern during COVID-19, and her concern is to know how do you safely transition to an ALF during COVID-19. So she's not calling for herself, she's calling for her mom. Her mom does live in independent living apartment. So it's a complex for senior, but she's by herself. And
Uh-huh.
basically, right now, she's getting forgetful. She forgets to take her meds. So Mary is very concerned about that, and in particular during COVID-19.
Mhm.
Um, so she wants to know how she can safely transition her mom into an ALF during this time. So what's your view on that?
Well,
Well, go
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 ahead, Lana. You go ahead, Lord. I
ahead.
would just, there's each facility is probably going to have their own protocols. So I'm sure that the facility is probably giving you a list of things that you'll need to do. I definitely would follow those things that are on that list. There's at this time, I would say to make sure that the supplies that you're going to need for her, you just double that, so that because you're not necessarily sure if what can happen in the near future. So opposed to 30 days, you may just want to take 60-day of supplies and just double up on certain things. And that's just like a baseline for me. But again, adhere to the list that the facility that she's going to is giving you.
Let me just ask you right you there, Pedro, because you're mentioning supplies. Can you just describe for our listener what you're referring to as supplies?
So we'll say, the hygiene needs, clothing, snacks, medication, uh, you know, uh, and things that personal needs that their personal likes. So everything that they, if they're using, let's say, for example, a puzzle book for activities and they're going through one every 2 weeks, well, you go and you tend to take, your loved one out every 2 weeks. At just plan to not be able to do that because they're allowing you to move in, but currently there's a restriction on visitation. So that means that
Got it.
once you move your mother in, you're not going to be able, I'm not sure what the protocol is. So for that location, so
Precaution.
ensure
Yeah.
that you have enough adequate supplies when you're taking her. Lana?
And that's a good point. And supplies in general, making sure you have extra the protective personal equipment with the mask and gloves and so forth that you're going to need. But just to go back to the caller, we definitely do not want people living by themselves that are not living safely by themselves.
Hmm.
So that therefore there's no way as a nurse and an administrator I would, if I could admit someone safely, that I would not do that. So there is a lot of ways to safely admit someone into your facility. If they're, as Mary stated, her mom's living independently, well, then therefore she can quarantine 2 weeks prior to that move-in date. Make sure she is not going out in the public at all. And, if family members need to take her things to her, independent living facility, her apartment, they can do so in a safe manner. Just like pharmacy can drop off meds to my facility in a safe manner, they can drop off supplies, the same thing the family can do when they're helping their loved one. So because she is living by herself, that's actually a good thing, because once again, she can quarantine for 2 solid weeks before coming into that facility. And also another good point is prior to that time of quarantine, she can be assessed by her doctor, where her doctor says that she safely can move into that facility and assess her for any of the COVID-19 symptoms. And then as a nurse, I would go into that facility the day before she's even moving in, and I would reassess her for temperatures and signs and symptoms again. So, you can go through a lot of safety protocols. but I would hate to know that someone's staying at home and not
Sure.
getting the care that they need because they're scared to make that transition, because that transition can be made safely, and especially if they're not able to provide that care independently anymore. So Mary, I would have a lot of concerns, but I would say there's ways to do it safely, and just find that facility that is comfortable doing it, and making sure that they are coordinating care with the doctors, that they are coordinating care with Department of Health if they need to, and they're just following her care very, very closely, especially even when she moves in as well.
Mm-hmm,
Right.
mm-hmm.
I would assume that she's a negative, because the 1823 is a document that you have to move
Mhm.
into an assisted living facility, and I would
Mhm.
assume that the 1823 has on it written specifically
Mhm.
that your mother Mary is negative for COVID-19 at this point. So at least you know the baseline of her moving in, that she's negative, and temperature checks are going to be done when she comes in. So as long
Mhm.
as they're going to have a protocol that they're going to follow, and I definitely would stick to that, because each facility is unique in how they're dealing with COVID-19. So there's not going to be a one size fits all
Mm-hmm.
situation. So with that being said, it's imperative that you follow the protocol of the location in which you're moving into, because they're specifically going to know how to, work the situation for your loved one.
Mhm.
So now, how do they, in the case of Mary, for example, if she hasn't identified a facility yet, because as you said, there's no guidelines for all, how could she identify what facility actually opens to new admission?
Mhm.
She would have to just do typically like they would do any other time. They would call just to see if there's any empty beds available, and then they would have to see if they're accepting currently. And based on the information that the location gives them, would determine if that's the location that they want to come to. The unfortunate piece is that you're not going to be able to do a tour like you normally would be able to do in the past.
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
now it'll probably be looking on the website at the location's information, and if they have a floor plan of the building, then that's kind of what they'll be able to see, but they'll see everything virtual. It won't be a physical plant visit at this time, at least I'm assuming.
Yeah, that
No,
makes sense.
no, and Pedro's correct, where they're not doing they're not doing tours. So right now, virtual tours are very important. I would say, whatever the facility that you're contemplating on, have them send you as many pictures, maybe some testimonials from other residents. Also, maybe some referrals from home health companies that have actually been through that facility. But as far as, getting the resources, we're also here to provide you with resources. If have any thoughts about a family that needs placement, please call us, because we're able to guide you through that process as well.
Right.
Now, in terms of care assessment, because in usual circumstances, people would come and visit the facility, have a care assessment. How is that going to be conducted? Is it virtual, or would that be in physically in presence? How would that work?
I think the first step would be, if there's an availability, it would be reviewing the 1823. So the individuals who's responsible for reviewing the 1823, which is
Which
the
is, yeah.
comprehensive assessment form that the facility needs to be able to move someone in, and it has their diagnosis, the medications list, their needs list. It's a needs assessments on that person. They'll be able to look at that and make a kind of paper determination if this person is a good match. Nothing is more, it's important to be able to do a face-to-face at times, but even now you can do it virtually. So we would assume that a family member would assist with that virtual. So that way questions could be asked on both sides. And that's kind of how we're doing it. Again, each facility is going to be uniquely different right now, but
Mhm.
that's kind of how we're doing it right now.
Mhm.
So the main point that I understand from what you guys said is making sure they take precaution before. So the safety piece is what they do before they move in, actually, like quarantine themselves, and making sure they had a doctor, they consulted with a doctor, they had the checks and all that. Am I
Correct.
right?
Correct. Correct. You're right. Because the thing is technology is really amazing. And right now, there's so many times that our residents could have been visited through a WebEx or any type of program online or through phones. And now we're seeing, through this COVID-19 that actually these visits that we're doing online are just as effective as these doctors traveling place to place. So there's a lot of good technology. So virtual tours they can look at. The doctor can visit the resident through FaceTiming. Go through that assessment as well. That's what most doctors are actually doing. But if they are going out there to see their doctor, just to take the precautions. Hopefully see if you can get access to a mask. Wear the mask when you go to that doctor and get back from that doctor. And then just once again, stay quarantined prior to that move-in because you're protecting yourself and then you're also going to protect the other residents. And I would say that is one of the most major things you could do prior to move-in.
Yeah, if you do have to move in, like in the case of Mary's mom, as Lana said before, we really want you to be safe, but to find a safe place too. So please listen and share that podcast because that can help other people who need to transition. So I'll be happy for them to hear that advice. So for today, we really want to thank you for listening. And we want to let you know that you can see more podcasts on our website. If you can visit www.easierlivingforyou.com and of course ask your questions. We love them. So just call us on 407-794-7277. And if you have access on your cell phone or laptop, just email us hello@easierlivingforyou.com. And we will see you happily next week at 12:45 for another chat with Lana and Pedro. Thank you
Thank
very
you
much for
guys.
today.
Be safe.
See you next week.